There's always going to be pulls. There's always going to be ups and downs. And, I give the women a lot of credit for speaking their mind. I think it's just naturally part of the process of them trying to, the league isn't that old. And so all of it is newer territory, and all of the expansion is that kind of rough, gritty new territory where everybody's kind of pushing and shoving to get maximum value of their own. So at the bottom line, I would say the league is in a good place and heading in the right direction. And these are the types of kind of abrasions that are necessary in that growing process.
Well said. Well said.
Welcome back to The Young Man and the Three, as always presented by 342 Productions and our friends at Wondery Amazon. Today's guests are our old friends Sue Bird and Cam Johnson. There are always so many incredible gems with this duo, and today's conversation was no exception. Today's episode of The Young Man and the Three is brought to you in partnership with Quest Nutrition. Succumb to great tasting snacks packed with protein. Quest, big on protein, low on sugar, huge on flavor. Without further ado, here's Sue Bird and Cam Johnson. Sue, Cam, the group is reconvened. This time remote. We were just saying we need a name for this trio. Really for you two. Wise something. I don't know what the second word is. How you guys doing?
Good. I'm not in camp though. So Cam, I feel like that's a better question for you.
Doing well. Just, you know how it is. New team, new city, new environment. Just trying to take it one day at a time and stack little wins.
Cam, I want to, because Sue and I have been talking about this a lot the last couple weeks, but you and I have not spoken about it really. I wanted to get your thoughts first on the Aces. Asia in particular. I think the question we were trying to figure out last week before they officially won, but when they were up 3-0, like, do we take this level of consistent dominance from her for granted a little bit?
I think it's yes and no. I think it is recognized to some degree, but I think it could definitely be even more recognized. And I remember watching, in particular, the game against Minnesota when Minnesota absolutely blew them out of the water. And being in and out of watching the W at the time, I'm like, okay, the Aces, they're not the same team this year. They just didn't look like a title contending team. Then you check back in a couple of weeks later and they're like a 15-game win streak and are just super hot. And so I think Asia is obviously the engine of that, but to put together a defensive player of the year season, an MVP season, and to win it all, it's not easy. And so she definitely deserves all the credit in the world for that.
So where are you now that they officially finished this sweep off? I'm not even saying, like, we don't need to do the legacy conversation yet because she's in the middle of it, but just like putting this season in perspective just with the other stuff that she's accomplished so far.
Yeah, I actually agree. I think it's like both and. I think she's rightfully so getting the acknowledgement she deserves because you're right, Cam, like MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, MVP of the finals. I feel like I'm missing something. Like she literally checked every box that you could possibly check, won every award that you could possibly win. And that's never been done before. And I think that's what I'm missing. And you're the champion. So it's like to check all these boxes. I think people are seeing it. They're acknowledging the greatness. I also think that this is one of those things where you're not really going to understand it until some time goes by and you see people, you're going to really see nobody else do it potentially in the next like 2, 5, 10 years. And that's when you're like, oh man, like what she did was incredible. Not to mention how they did it, right? Like Cam, when they were playing against Minnesota in that game, they lost by 53 points. The Seattle Storm, we actually, because of the trade with Jewell Loyd and Kelsey Plum, we actually have their first round pick. And there was, at that point in the season, there was a conversation like, oh, what if Vegas doesn't make the playoffs? This is great for Seattle. We're going to get a top 4 pick. I mean, that was a real thing. Like they did not look like a team, forget the championship. Were they going to make the playoffs? Obviously it was early. I said this on Bird's Eye View with Tommy, pre-All-Star break. So it's like there was a long way to go, but that was a real thing. So the turnaround, I think that's what makes the legacy conversation really interesting because it wasn't just this team that was favored to win and did it.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, at the time they were hovering around 500. And after a game like that, they just looked like they were going downhill, which happens in leagues. And I think a note came out. I don't know where it came out from, but how she in particular responded to that game and the message she sent to her teammates in a group chat, and how she kind of rallied them. And like that all sounds good, but the real substance behind it is how they responded as a team.
Sue, do you feel like I'm trying to think of how to like phrase this in the right way. I feel like the narrative with them in their last championships have been like no one is, the MVP speak for themselves. No one's doubted her greatness, but like the Aces are a super team. With Plum, with Chelsea, with Jackie, with her, it's like this super team. When the trade happened, it was sort of unclear, how Jewell was going to fit, where she was going to fit. All those guys ended up having really good seasons in their own way, but it also felt a little bit like that narrative shifted a little bit. And like you've sort of said a bunch on Bird's Eye, like the team needed time to find their footing after a big trade like this, but it did feel like it turned a little more into this is just Asia's team and everyone else needs to fit around her, if that makes sense. Am I on that at all?
Yes and no. I think like the way I would say it was agree with you. They had a massive trade. Like Plum can't get lost in what made the Aces great in their first two championship runs. Like she's a huge part of it. That was like a big four, right? With Asia, Jackie, Chelsea, and Plum. That, man, I think everybody thought if they stay together, not one, not two, not three. No, you thought they were going to win like a bunch of championships, Obviously, it didn't work out. Things happen in sports like that. They get the trade, they get Jewell. Okay. The way I would describe it is, to your point, they were definitely finding their footing early, but it didn't look good halfway through. It looked like, okay. They also lost like major contributors off the bench. Alicia Clark, like Tiffany Hayes, like major contributors off the bench. So there were just a lot of question marks. But what you saw in Asia was like, that didn't really phase her or her play. She was the same. She was pretty consistent. Early on, she had an injury. It kept her out a couple games, but otherwise, she was pretty consistent. And so what I think you saw and what made her season so great is this consistent play all the way through, only to raise her level in that 16-game win streak. And essentially, like because she did that, because she raised that level, it gave her teammates a chance to, for lack of a better, catch up. And then what you saw in the playoffs, they caught up and they finally gelled. And I mean, I think something that is going to get under talked about. Jewell's going to get talked about her performance in the finals, especially because she hasn't lost in the finals now. Like our two Seattle Storm runs and this one hasn't lost. Chelsea Gray was unbelievable. I thought Chelsea Gray, if you could have like a second MVP, to me, it would have been her.
Cam, what'd you think?
We're going to call that the assistant MVP.
There we go. There we go.
1A.
How many finals is this for Asia and the Aces?
3 finals, 3 wins.
That's impressive. Like, that's impressive. And to do that with roster change, to do that, like it kind of just shows. And it also kind of shows that there's a lot of potential for staying power there. You know what I mean? There's a lot of potential for however their roster shapes out and however the roster ages and however the roster changes. Like, I do think it kind of solidified it as, that transition from collective super team with maybe the head being Asia, but a super team to truly Asia's team. I think that kind of solidified them as like perennial contenders where their window stays open.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, we didn't even talk about Jackie. I'm like already giving an award to Chelsea.
Jackie played great.
Yeah, it was like Asia got there in that win streak. Jackie joined her, and then come playoff time, everybody else met them. But that's the beauty of this. This wasn't an easy run. I mean, they almost lost to Seattle. They almost lost to Indiana.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, I wouldn't be surprised if, you asked the Aces, all of them, including Becky, including the coach, like, does this one mean a little bit more? I think, yeah.
I feel like that's the story with Jackie. It happens. I feel like it happens in USA too. She just is consistently really good. And she just does it, and she doesn't really, she doesn't need to talk about it too much or anything like that. She kind of just does it. And so people kind of forget about it, but then she just keeps winning.
Jackie's so good. I'm actually mad at myself that I didn't say that first. Jackie is like arguably right now, the best guard in the league. Like, like shooting guard. So good.
Cam, I wanted to get your perspective a little bit now that the season is finished. It was just a crazy year in a lot of ways. Sue's had to talk about some of the Phee's comments last week and all the stuff, going on over the last couple of weeks publicly. How you put the season on a macro level for the league sort of in perspective, because there's been so much there's so many young new stars. The ratings have been great. The ratings in the playoffs, the ratings in the finals were great. The expansion stuff is going really well. The buzz is really there. But then you also have this juggle of like what Phee did in that press conference is completely unprecedented, and we've never seen really in professional sports before. And so you've been pretty busy, in camp, but you also have been following this stuff a bit. And so just like your perspective on where everything is now and like what we're sort of looking for going into the offseason.
First and foremost, I'd say it was extremely competitive. Playoff battles for those last spots were competitive. And the teams that secured the last spots were competitive. The playoffs were competitive. The Fever were down 15 women. Managed to take it all the way down to the end with Kelsey Mitchell going out, and they still stepped up and took it down to the wire. Like, the competition across the league is in a great place. And in regards to Fee's comments, she's earned the right to speak out on what she feels. She's put in the work. She's had the accolades. She's had the success. She's worked her butt off. She has Minnesota as a number one seed, one of the best teams in the league. She's earned the right. So I think it's natural. I think it's all part of the process of what I would assume is scaling a league. There's always going to be pulls. There's always going to be ups and downs. And, I give the women a lot of credit for speaking their mind. I think it's just naturally part of the process of them trying to, the league isn't that old. And so all of it is newer territory, and all of the expansion is that kind of rough, gritty new territory where everybody's kind of pushing and shoving to get maximum value of their own. So at the bottom line, I would say the league is in a good place and heading in the right direction. And these are the types of kind of abrasions that are necessary in that growing process.
Well said. Well said.
Sue, I mean, this is for both of you, but I kind of want to start with you. The offseason is going to be crazy from a player movement standpoint. Of course, with everything going on with the CBA, we don't know how everything's going to shake out, but it seems from all intents and purposes, there's going to be a lot of moving parts across the board. From a team building perspective, like what would you look for if you're a GM? Like outside of the, you have a chance to get a superstar, blah, 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 everything like that. What do you feel like when you're building a team in the current W, you look for from like a cohesiveness standpoint that every team should be sort of like looking to build with?
Yeah. Honestly, the answer to your question, given how different this offseason is going to be, for the listeners that don't know, everybody knew this CBA was coming. Everybody knew the media deal was going to be huge. So everybody, with the exception of two people, there are two players who have veteran status who have one more year left on their contracts. Kalani Brown, not to name names, but Kalani Brown and Lexi Brown. They're the only two vets that are signed to teams. Then, of course, people on their rookie deals. So they still have 1, 2, 3 years left, depending on who they are. Every other player is a free agent, and we're adding 2 teams. It is unprecedented in sports. I don't think you can name another league. Men's, women's, doesn't matter. So it's like the answer to your question is kind of like complex, because I don't think this is a free agency where you go for like the fit for your team or the role player. This isn't what this is. This is, I think as a GM, this is how can I prey on teams that have multiple all-stars and try to financially lure one, if it's not the tippy top, player, the best player on the team, the second one, the third one, the fourth one even, and try to financially lure them, because the way the money, assuming the influx is what it is, teams are going to have money to spend Obviously, the CBA has to get done and all the things. But if we live in a world right now where it's done, I'd imagine that, you could be looking at a scenario where your best player is getting, let's call it $1 million. I'm making this up. Your best player is getting $1 million. Now you get to offer that second player $1 million to come to your team. And now it's like, oh, that player is going to have a huge decision. So I'd be playing around with that.
What do you take from the Valkyries' success in their inaugural season? And because kind of everybody's kind of now in like an expansion kind of zone where you have a lot of kind of freedom to build your roster. So what do these new teams, or even teams that are trying to poach, like what do you take from what the Valkyries were able to accomplish this season going forward for these new teams?
Yeah, I think what the Valkyries accomplished is twofold. Like, one, there's the whole idea of building like community. They tapped into Oakland, they tapped into the Bay Area so well. So every new team, but really every team, can definitely take like a page out of that book and understand what they did. I think their in-game, their in-arena experience, they did, I don't really know the names of all the Bay Area dances, but like there was definitely times where they were incorporating like the culture, the fabric of the city into the in-arena experience. And I think it just built that community more. But then the other part that they did an amazing job with, Natalie Nikola, their head coach, and from what I understand, just like all the staff, they built culture. This is a team now that, whether they're fighting for a championship or maybe they're in a rebuild, right, in the course of their existence, you're going to know what the culture is there. And that's what also attracts players. And they have a situation where, I don't know, if I'm an all-star player and maybe I'm like, not unhappy, but would be open to moving, why wouldn't you want to go there? They have shown who they are in all the ways. I think franchises where there's more question marks around those things, it just makes it a tougher sell. So they made themselves sellable. And that's what I think the two new expansion teams can learn, but really everybody can learn.
Yeah, like I feel like to your point, like they didn't have a true star. So they kind of set the table to add a premier player onto their existing formula and try to kind of climb that ladder even quicker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I totally agree. That's what I mean by the culture part.
Well, this is what I find to be so interesting about this. And Cam, I'm curious your perspective too. I don't think that this is going to happen in the NBA, but if it, for whatever reason, 3 years from now, this did a similar thing happen where all of a sudden everybody was a free agent, everybody could decide to go do something like this. Like, we talk about culture all the time in the NBA, but generally it is a culture that's already established. And then you're finding one or two people to fit into that. In this case, you're sort of being like, we need to build the culture on the fly, which clearly the Valkyries did well. So I guess is like, does it make the coach more important? Are there certain things that become more valuable than you would say if it's like a veteran locker room, and you're fitting into a thing you're fitting into an existence that is already there versus like, we basically need to build a thing that generally takes time, in a matter of months rather than years.
Yeah, I think it starts at the leadership for that specific example. You look at the Valkyries, and I know that situation was definitely fueled by the coaching staff from the outside looking in. I think the key then is to pair the personality of your coaching staff and the ideology with the star or all-star or whatever type of player that is premier fits with that kind of mindset and attitude. So it's all just about, especially so far of what I've seen in the NBA, it's about pairing. There are a lot of great coaches. There are a lot of great players. Some coaches elevate some of their players. Some coaches don't see eye to eye with some of their players. And it's not to blame one party or another. I think the toughest job of finding head coaches in the NBA and being a head coach in the NBA is setting a culture, but also kind of having that great relationship with the main engine of your team, because everything filters from there on down.
Hear that? That's the voice of temptation, and Quest Nutrition makes it so worth giving in. I've been succumbing to their protein bars during our long recording sessions, and they taste like pure indulgence. I'm obsessed with their chocolate chip cookie dough protein bars, obsessed. They're my go-to during our marathon recording sessions. And don't even get me started on the protein chips. The cheesy flavor is irresistible. I literally have to hide them from myself and from Richie, who tries to steal them in the studio, or they'll disappear in one setting. Quest has this whole lineup of forbidden flavors that make giving in feel so good. Those rich, chocolatey protein bars, those irresistibly crunchy chips, these velvety smooth protein milkshakes, and here's the plot twist. They're all packed with protein. Quest, big on protein, low on sugar, huge on flavor. It's basically cheating. Shop Quest on Amazon at amazon.com/Quest Nutrition. Sue, what was your favorite part of your Denver experience? And can you explain it now in retrospect, just like how it even came to be? Because I don't know. I know it, but I don't know that we ever really talked about it on the show.
Yeah. I just finished the 2018 season. We had won. So, you're just on TV more, you're around more. Fast forward like a month, maybe less. I get a text from Karan Butler. I went to Connecticut with Karan. Hey, my guy, Tim Connolly, he's the president of the Denver Nuggets. Like, he was wondering if he could talk to you. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I have no idea what about. So I take the call, and Tim is just kind of, first of all, Tim is great. I love Tim. I love how he works. I love what he stands for. I learned so much from him. Yeah, I had no idea where this conversation was going to go, but I'm so thankful that he even reached out at all. He was interested in having me just really like participate. I don't even know how else to say it, because it wasn't for an exact role. He didn't call me like, this is the job I have. He just was like, hey, I like see what you've done on the court. I see who you are off the court. Do you want to come check us out and see if something fits? And that's kind of how it started. I went to Denver. The season was like about to start, and I just kind of like took a tour. Like, they showed me around practice facility, met the guys, met the coaches, met the front office, met everybody. And then it was like, okay, this is what we see, but like, what do you want to do? And they really let me choose, in a sense. Like, do you want to be more involved with coaching staff stuff, right? Do you want to be more in front of office meetings? And I chose the front office because I don't know the inner workings of a coaching staff, but as a player, I kind of like understood what that life was. So while I probably could have learned a lot more X's and O's, from Mike Malone and just see how they did, I didn't know anything about front office work. I didn't know anything about it. And I actually don't know in the moment that I ever want to go into coaching, I still don't know that. So for me, like, to learn about front office, something I didn't know, was really attractive. So we worked a deal out. I forget what my title was. We totally made it up. It was like basketball operations associate or something like that, which really meant I could kind of tap in wherever, but I ended up tapping in the most of the front office, sat in all the meetings, they have a day where like all the scouts come into town, all the people that work that you don't see on a day-to-day, they all come into town, a huge meeting. It was like right before the trade deadline, kind of just going through like the state of the Nuggets, the state of the league, trade deadline stuff. That was like by far, Tim must have gotten up and taken like 20 calls in that meeting because the trade deadline was like the next day. So that was fascinating. And yeah, all in, I learned so much. There's a lot of guys in Denver now that were there when I was there that are still there. Ben Taser, who got a promotion, he's still there. But I have a special place for Denver because of my experience there.
Who was there? Who's still there player-wise? I'm just trying to think. I don't have the roster in front of me.
The Joker, Jokic is still there. I'd have to look.
Yeah, maybe
Jamal and Jokic.
Oh yeah, Jamal. Duh. Yeah.
So what do you see when you watch? I guess the two of those guys play, having had that perspective, working around them, but then also, just being a fan of basketball and watching their game.
Yeah, I mean, Cam, you said it. There's the coach-player pairing. Then there's like the player-player pairing. And it's not about being, better or worse or right or wrong. It's just fit. And those two, like, they fit. The way Jamal moves off the ball, obviously his skill set that he can kind of score at all three levels, but really his movement. Like, not a lot of star players want to cut. And the thing about the Joker that I'm sure you're learning, I mean, if you move and you're willing to cut and relocate, he is going to find you. That's what makes him special. I think you could sit here and talk about skill sets for both of them, but back to Nikola, I think it's like he's 10 steps ahead. Some players are one step, they anticipate maybe two. It feels like he's playing in another year. Like, we're all in 2025, 26. He's like in 2035. That's how he reads the game, sees the game. And I think because of his size and his strength, it allows him to play at his pace. And then what happens when you're playing at your pace, which I wouldn't call him slow. He's actually really light on his feet and his touch is amazing. But the game he's at his pace and it's just slow. Everything is really slow for him. He controls it, I think, because of his size and his strength. I mean, I feel like I want to throw it to you, Cam. How are you finding playing with these guys?
No, that's exactly it. So the initial skill is just an incredible awareness. And then you pair it up with like actual pure basketball skills where, yes, he's reading the game way ahead of everybody else, but he also has the physical capability to act on it quickly. And like you said, it may look slow to some people, but everything he does is like very split-second decision, and he's always moving. Like he is very active as a basketball player. He's here, he's there, he's cutting, he's diving, he's setting screens, he's popping. And so he just lets the game develop around him, and he just knows the movement of his teammates and the defenders around him. So it's like that's his main skill right there, in combination with the ball control. Like he just sticks his arm up to get a rebound, and the ball kind of just like glues to his hand. But it's cool. It's a cool roster across the board, with what everybody brings to the table. And as we kind of iron this thing out, like it's super encouraging, and it's a lot of fun when you can just sit back and put on the film and watch a couple of good clips and kind of see where we can take it.
What's your favorite thing about one of your new teammates on the court so far that you have not learned until playing with them?
I really like the improvements of CB, Christian Braun, over the years. I remember early in his career and the role he played and how he's grown that and become a really good basketball player, a really good defender, knocking down open shots. That's what surprised me the most. Obviously, I watched him last year, and he did a great job playing off the ball, scoring in cuts, scoring in transition. But what he showed me, this summer and going into this training camp is that he got a lot of game to back that up too.
Sue, this is probably a thing that you maybe have learned more from, talking to people than having to live it yourself in the W at least. But in terms of adapting to a new team and situation, if it's like the mental film prep side of things versus just reps and experience, like with Cam, it's like you just playing with these guys, everything is going to get easier the more time you do it. How much can you really sort of prepare mentally before you actually just get out there and use it as lived experience? Is there anything you can do from a film standpoint, or is it literally just like we're going to be in a much better place a month in than we were, when we started?
Yeah. I mean, the way I'm looking at that is like when we had new teammates come in and wanting to get them acclimated quickly. I don't know the exact answer on like the film part. I'm sure that can help. I'm sure that can speed things along, but sometimes it's like, you do have to do it. You do have to feel it. But I know when we had new players come in, especially because I played the point guard position, I was very, very intentional around like including, like just making sure they felt included on what we were doing, right? Making sure they understood for sure, making myself available for questions or, if there was something they needed to, I don't know, go deeper on. But I feel like feeling included is really important. So maybe that means, early in training camp, I'm running a couple plays for them, making them feel, by the way, including means off the court, of course, but I'm more so just talking about like when you're playing, like practice, games, like those moments in the locker room. So it's definitely something I try to do because I think a lot of this is getting acclimated it really is like a feeling thing. Like you want to feel a part of a team, especially if it's a team that's been, has like a core group. You don't want to ever make somebody feel like an outsider, and it can be hard. So you have to go out of your way to make them feel included.
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree. And Sue, that's like the hallmark of a great teammate right there and the hallmark of a great point guard, which you obviously were. But yeah, and speaking from experience now, it's like you feel the fact that the other four guys on the court have been playing together for a while. They have a very silent understanding of a lot of things where I'm like, hey guys, like talk me through some of this sometimes. Like just a little extra communication here and there goes a long way, because I'm still trying to catch up to a lot of these. It's not even necessarily plays. It's just patterns. A lot of the patterns that present themselves on a play-by-play basis. And it's fun. You have to enjoy it. Film helps because it gives you a lot of clues. It gives you a bird's eye view and it gives you a lot of clues. So when you sit down and you watch the film and you see, okay, such and such went here, such and such went there on defense. This is our coverage. This is where he will be. This is where he will be. Film just gives you that bird's eye view that you don't get when you're on the court. So you need both. You need both the playing aspect and the review of what you're doing. But a lot of it, especially with high level players like that, just like we have in Denver, just happens with time.
Yeah, Cam, I have a question. How do you manage as someone who's joining a new team? It doesn't even have to be specific to Denver, just like in general. How do you manage like being yourself, bringing what you know you're good at, while like trying to fit in to what it is already existed? Like, what is the balance there?
One is giving yourself a little bit of grace on it. There's going to be times where you attack and there's nothing there. There's going to be times where you don't and you should have. There's going to be, and you're scaling your aggression, you're scaling your touches and everything because it's different. It's just point blank period. It's different. For me personally, a lot of my game has been centered around being able to catch and shoot the ball. So I know personally that I have, early in college, early in the NBA, I have gotten on the court and made an impact through catching and shooting and allowing myself to visualize, see, and then take advantage of the other parts of the game. But it always, since high school, had start with being able to be a shooter, which I was at a necessity because I was just a lot smaller than everybody. But it's almost similar in this aspect is like, one, be really good at what you're really good at, and then review the film, mentally take notes in the game and be like, all right, these are where these opportunities are. For example, we played a game against the Clippers yesterday, right? And on a new team, the game moves faster than it did where you were before. Because where I was before, I'm calling plays, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm telling everybody where to go. You have a firm grasp control over the game. When you're on a team with an established team where you're still trying to figure out a lot, it speeds up the game. So visually, it all just looks a little faster and decisions, like they're not necessarily as cut and dry as they had been in the past. So I go back and I watch that game and it's like, okay, a lot of these situations, I have lanes off of transition. I have lanes when I get a rebound or a steal and I can push. Maybe I was too flat-footed in this instance. Maybe I should have cut in this one. And so I go through and I look and I watch and I'm like, all right, these are where the moments of improvement are. And then in the meantime, just continue to be myself, continue to play as I naturally would and not try to change anything.
So did you have a period in your career where you felt like you were going through this, a similar type of process?
In terms of?
Well, just the figuring out, even when Cam talks about giving himself grace, because your journey was different in terms of like not having to, move around.
No, definitely. Even though my, the moments I had to adapt didn't necessarily come with like franchise changes, they certainly came with roster changes. They certainly came with age. I think the age part is probably, one of the harder ones because there's a lot of, in my situation, I had to let go a little bit of what made me great because I couldn't play at that type of level or speed anymore. Like I was a pull up on a dime jump shooter off pick and rolls in transition. And I just couldn't stop on a dime in the same way. It's like really that simple. So now I'm simultaneously like my scoring is decreasing. I'm not as fast or as quick as I once was. All these younger players are. And I'm having to you have a choice. I can either continue to try to do this, albeit unsuccessfully, or I can let go of it. And that requires no joke, a grieving process. So luckily I was teamed up with some young players, Brianna Stewart, Jewell Loyd, who in that moment, I was like, okay, here's my choice, right? I can either be this aging point guard, aging player who won't let go of certain things, or I can adapt. I can really mold my game to what's going to be best for the team, but really ultimately what's best for those two. Because I knew if those two are good, we had a chance. And I'm saying this is sounding like this happened in a day. It's like I had to work in the off season on it. I had to train different things. I tried to extend my range and be more accurate from deeper because I knew if I can't create space by going by people and then drawing, I had to like create space for my teammates by being further out. So I was a harder closeout. You couldn't help as much. So I had to like really, learn a different way in a sense. And also simultaneously like change my value system. Like, how did I play well? How did I grade myself? And that's also, you have to adjust and adapt to that too.
Did you feel your voice changing at all during this process? Or do you think your leadership style and voice stayed the same during it?
I think they like not dramatically changed. They basically stayed the same. But I started to change one little lens, like one part of it, which was doing this more for like, specifically Jewell and Stewie. Like, I'm doing this for you guys. So when I'm gone, you're going to be fine. I'm doing this for you guys. So when I'm gone, this franchise continues to go. That obviously didn't work out the way I would have thought because neither of them are with Seattle. But I very much was like trying to impart knowledge on them as opposed to just doing something like, a means to an end, which the end would have been like winning the game or winning the championship. It took on like a larger meaning, I guess, is kind of what I'm trying to say.
Do you think that the transition stuff we're talking about, Sue, you had the experience in Russia, you had the experience overseas, obviously now Unrivaled, it's not 5-on-5 yet, but has taken on a bigger role in sort of what the offseason looks like for a lot of the players. But the transition process is easier sometimes in the W because you're basically on multiple teams all the time. So you're not if you like Cam plays for the Nuggets. He's not playing for another team this summer with brand new teammates. And so you basically are like, you're kind of forced to adapt and like live a double life all the time. And so like, do you feel like it just becomes easier because of that?
Yeah, that is a great point. To be honest, now that I'm thinking back on our last 30 minutes of conversation, I definitely have changed teams. I've definitely been the new person. I wasn't even thinking of overseas. No, that's a great point. And you're 100% accurate. We are constantly in flux of different teams playing for different things, having a different role constantly. Even you throw in the national team, throw in the Olympics. I've said this before, Tommy, like, there's only like one or two players, like truly, maybe a handful, whose roles never change no matter what team they're on. I guess you could extend that if you look at like the NBA, because there's so many players. There might be like 10, 15 players where no matter where they go, their role does not change. Everybody else, where you go, things are going to change. And that is the life, or has been the life, of a women's basketball player. And it does. You know what? I'm going to throw one other thing in there. Because of that life, we're all really close too. It's not that we don't have like our little things on the court. It's not to say everybody likes everybody, but I remember after the All-Star game and the stud buds were doing all their live stuff, a lot of people's reactions were like, oh, dang, like you guys do hang out. And it's like, yeah, because I probably played with her yesterday. I'm on her team now. I played with her 2 years ago. Like, we're all around each other all the time.
Yeah, it's one big family, one big community.
Mm-hmm.
And you get that in the NBA too. You play with, as your career goes on, you play with a lot of different guys. Like if you counted up your teammates, it would be a large number. So I can only imagine how in the W it's less teams. And so that the relationships with one another just are even more present.
I think we'll probably wrap because I feel like Cam needs a nap after camp. I feel like we don't want to.
Do I look bad?
No, you look great, but I just feel like
you got in late last night.
We're at the end of the line.
Got in late.
Thank you guys, as always. The next time we do this, we're going to have a name for this that we will decide on our
2+2
group thread, and then 2+2 might be it. And then we are also going to try to badger Sue and do a Denver trip, which I don't know if we will be successful, but
come on back.
We will make the attempt. We will make the attempt. All right, thanks, guys.